tipping point. President Trump says the ceasefire with Iran is intact despite U.S. forces exchanging fire with the IRGC in the Strait of Hormuz this week. And Iran says, hold your horses on the deal framework. For the latest on the war, we're joined by retired U.S. Army Major and Gulf War veteran Mike Lyons. He's here in studio with us. Also here, former Deputy Commander of United States Central Command, Vice Admiral Robert Harwood. Admiral, I'm going to start with you. U.S. naval forces, other ships were targeted this week by the IRGC, the U.S. neutralizing all those targets easily. The question I have for you is, are we dealing with dead-enders here who are acting independently, or are these attacks ordered by the IRGC or government leaders in Iran at this point?
Either one is somewhat irrelevant to the bigger issue, and that's that the Iranians are going to try to draw out as much time as possible. The blockade is very effective. Any attack against our combatant ships are pretty quickly dealt with. These ships are built with very sophisticated advanced defensive systems, so they can fend for themselves very well. And the small speedboats are very tactical. All of this is a play to have influence on the negotiations and draw out time by the regime. And where the president's hoping that his timeline is that the blockade will increase the pressure not only on the regime, but to the people of Iran as well. So we're seeing both of these timelines play out, and all of these small tactical events or operational attacks on the ships are just precursors to that.
Major, Iran says that it's working on a response to President Trump's peace proposal, but they're going to do it at their own pace. The president is threatening intense bombing if a deal isn't reached. We just heard from our Jerusalem correspondent that there's a lot of skepticism in the region about any kind of peace agreement, any kind of deal with these folks because of the history between the United States and Iran. What do you think is likely to happen here over these next few days?
I think the president's trying to give as much time to the Iranians to agree to a deal that will not make us look, like Neville Chamberlain of this century. It's going to have to be something that there's clear victory from the United States and capitulation by the Iranians, because he knows that if he does start another conflict, it means the resetting of War Powers Act and all these things. And I don't believe we'll have this escalation ladder. I think it will be a massive attack. It'll go for a full-blown campaign. It'll go for more weeks potentially. So he recognizes that it's the last, kind of chip to play, last card to play. So before he does it, he wants to exhaust every single thing that he's got on the diplomatic side. He's concerned about the Gulf states, and he's concerned about the Arab nations, about leaving a wounded Iran and not one that's been fully defeated. Yeah,
and again, we're talking about a framework here. We're not necessarily talking about a deal. We're talking about a deal to make a deal, essentially. And that kind of draws this out potentially past the midterm elections, which could benefit the administration. Admiral, over to you, sir. Reports are that Iran's negotiators aren't budging when it comes to giving up their enriched uranium. We know that what the president's red line is. He has repeatedly said Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Do they need to give up the enriched uranium that they have for a deal to be possible? Or is that something that can be worked around if there is a desire to sort of end this conflict?
I don't believe so. I think the nuclear material is the core of the strategic risk from Iran. As we've watched them over decades increase the number of cascades and centrifuges they had to enrich the material at what they would call a breakout pace. They could do it in a matter of a week, take that highly enriched nuclear material at 60%, process the uranium to 90%, and then they have weapons-grade material. So the time to do that had been shrunk to a week or so. So you have to get the material itself to ensure that would take decades for them to reconstitute that capability. So that removes the long-range risk and that umbrella of nuclear protection Iran would be. And then after that, as you noted, in the missiles, the drones that remain the threat to the GCC members and our forces in the region. So if you meet agreement, then time is on the president's side and everyone else to see how the internal dynamics of Iran play out, because the Iranian people have suffered miserably under these guys. And then you have time to work the real end state, a change of regime, a government in Iran that renounces the Islamic Revolution and all the harm it's done to the Iranian people, much less Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, and others. That's the really ultimate end state for everyone.
Major, I saw you nodding your head when the Admiral was talking about that enriched uranium. There is a lot of debate, though, here in the States. I've interviewed people who say, nah, it's not necessary or it's not practical to get because of where it is. It's too risky to send our own forces in to get it. I saw you nodding your head when the Admiral was speaking. What do you, where do you fall on this?
Yeah, same. We have to have that. That's a red line. There's no other way around it. Right now, it's too difficult a military mission to think that we would get in there with troops on the ground. To move basically half a ton of material that's highly radioactive is going to take a very large skill set and a lot of troops in order to do that. It's too risky right now.
So what do we do?
So we continue the military bombing campaign. We look for, get allies involved with this. Use allied forces to help with those troops on the ground that would potentially do this. I mean, we're not going to deploy the 1st Armored Division. We're not going to send large troop formations there. But it will require people to be in on the ground to gather that material and make sure that we're secure.
And you think that that has to happen in order for this to really come to a conclusion?
They have to agree to it, and we have to go and do it. And that's going to be one of those signs of victory that I think the president needs to show that this has been worth it.
Major, back over to you. The CENTCOM has said that U.S. forces have prevented 57 vessels from violating the blockade of Iran's ports. The blockade, as you had pointed out, obstructing billions in Iranian oil revenue. What needs to be the principal condition for lifting the blockade?
I think the...
I'm sorry, I meant to ask that to the Admiral.
Look, I'm an
Let the Navy guy answer the stuff about ships. That's the...
But look, it's been a very successful campaign. We're blocking all their commerce. We're choking them economically, and that's good. That's a problem. We can do that for an extended period of time. But the timeline is how much pain can Europe take? How much pain can Asia take, much less the American people? That's shorter-term pain than the Iranian people have. But the regime is more than willing to throw the Iranian people under the bus, as they've done for the last 60 years, to stay in power. So, again, maintain the blockade. We can do that. And then if you're going to target, my suggestion was, do the things that hurt them the most. Target the IRGC. Go after their leadership. Go after their people. Make them suffer like everyone else has. And that's how you're going to drive change here, the short term. And I agree with Mike said, it's not just current, it's long-term security. That's why you got remove the material, not just for agreement now, but that ensures for another 10, 20 years, unless a state actor comes into a system, that they won't be able to achieve a nuclear weapon. You've removed the materials, so to reconstitute, that's going to take decades and a lot of support from others. So that really is one of the primary components of long-term security for the regional players and Europe and others going forward.
Major, the Admiral mentioned China. This week, the president heads to communist China. What are you watching for out of that meeting?
The president possibly inserting the Chinese into this negotiation, removing the Pakis and putting the Chinese, as they have used Iran as a proxy for them. They've been a state that's helped and support them. Trump looks to elevate this negotiation and elevate the whole process. But besides just talking about Iran, I think it's important that we talk about AI. We talk about other things and set the stage for really important summit talks about the United States and China and where the future of the military is going, and specifically how we're using artificial intelligence in our military equipment. I think this is the SALT Treaty of the 70s, strategic arms limitations based on nuclear weapons, and that's what AI is. We had mutually assured destruction. Now we're going to have mutually automated destruction if we don't get together with the Chinese and start to recognize we have to have some red lines where AI is used in the military.
The Chinese want to win that fight, and they want to win that race, so we'll see what happens. Major Mike Lyons, Admiral Robert Harward, gentlemen, thank you for your service to the country, and we appreciate you. Thank you.